Hello everyone, hopefully you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. As you can see, we're doing our final checks there before we begin. Hello everybody. I hope you guys are ready for some spoilers for the upcoming Surface event. If you're not, tune out now. Actually, tune out in about 10 minutes because we have a story before that first.
All right, let's see. I'm almost ready here. I guess I should tweet out that we're doing a podcast.
It would be handy.
Would it? I'm not really sure. It matters.
I'm sure there's at least one follower that appreciates it.
All right, the tweet is live.
Every week we need camera and mic updates from you. Well, mine doesn't change every week. Mine's the same for ages. Dan's, on the other hand, I'm pretty sure his changes multiple times a week.
It's pretty challenging.
We need volume level. Right, who's louder than who? Let me know who is the louder one, and I will tone them down. I'm quiet. All right, Dan can turn down then. Right, there we are. Hopefully it's better.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, I am now recording.
I'm now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 286 for September 30th, 2022. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. We got a nice lineup for you this week, including, of course, Windows 11 news. The Surface event spoilers, some more information has leaked out, surprisingly not from us, so don't get mad at us, Panos. But we'll go through what those rumors are and talk about what it could mean. Intel finally pulled off the curtains off its 13th gen desktop processor, so we'll kind of go through that news. But perhaps the more interesting stuff was Intel announced Unison, which is a new phone app that'll be coming out for Windows PCs starting later this year that will allow you to control and use your Android phone as well as your iPhone on a Windows PC. So think of Microsoft's Phone Link, just better. And I'll explain why it's kind of better and what Intel's long-term plans are here. As I got to interview them when I was in Israel, and I thought that was pretty cool, someone bravely removed the Surface Duo 2's camera from the rear of the device, which is it's a contentious issue for Duo fans. Some like the design of Duo 1 and are like, I don't care about a camera, while a bunch of us, including myself, are like, I don't love the hump, but I do enjoy having a triple camera array on the rear. Anyway, one brave person went through and did that, so we'll talk a little bit about that, as well as a review roundup and probably any other news we missed, which we probably did miss something. I like to. There's actually a lot that happened this week, but I didn't even get a chance to go through it all. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. Getting ready for the Surface event in a couple of weeks is basically top of my mind at this point. But yeah, I've also got a thing of the week finally this week, which I'm excited to talk about, but also not really excited to talk about because it's been a disappointment. But we'll get to that later in the show.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's, yeah, speaking of disappointments, one of those will be in the Surface event, I think. But what happened with the Windows 11 this week? I did catch some of the updates here. I think there's just small cool things that they announced that I think are they're not almost like headline worthy yet. When you hear about them, like, oh, that's gonna be actually a good idea. I want that today. So
Yeah.
explain to us what happened.
So there was a new dev channel and new beta channel build. The dev channel got build 25 to 11, and this has, as Dan mentioned, some notable improvements. Nothing groundbreaking, just lots of nice quality of life updates. So, for example, the widget settings, widgets panel rather, is getting a bunch of new settings. You'll be able to finally turn off the hover over the button to open widgets panel. That annoying thing whenever you accidentally mouse into the corner. It automatically opens. You'll soon be able to turn that off, which is great. You'll also be able to configure notification badges from the widgets button, as well as turn off the announcements thing. So you see stock changes or weather updates. You can turn that off as well with this update, which is pretty cool. They've also added back the moving on from the widgets panel. They've also added back the ability to quick launch the task manager from the right-click menu on the taskbar. So in addition to the singular taskbar settings option, there is now a task manager option as well. That is them responding to feedback where people have said, hey, I used to access the task manager through the right-click context menu on the taskbar all of the time. Removing that has really disrupted my workflow, so they're finally bringing that back with this build, which is pretty cool as well. And they've also updated the updated system tray, which previously it didn't support the ability to drag and drop icons between the taskbar and the overflow menu. Starting with this build, you can finally do that. It's very preliminary at this point. So you can't just sort of drag it to the taskbar. You have to drag it to the arrow and then let it go, and then it sort of puts it there. But you can finally technically drag and drop between the taskbar and the overflow menu now as well. And in addition to that, it also has some nice new animations and looks pretty cool, which is really quite nice. And that's basically all of the notable changes in this build. Lots of minor fixes here and there, but the big stuff, of course, there is with the widgets panel and being able to turn off a bunch of different options in there. The beta channel build 22621 and build 22623, this is notable because up until now we were testing 22622, which was essentially representative of what the Moment 1 or the October feature drop was going to entail. We've now moved on to 22623, which I would assume will be representative of the next Moment update, Moment 2, which I'm told is currently scheduled for February-March 2023. And so far in this update, we're getting the tablet optimized taskbar. That's been in the dev channel for a while. That, if you don't remember, is essentially the Windows 10X style minimized taskbar interface that appears when you're using a tablet. If you're using a two-in one, you disconnect the keyboard, the taskbar minimizes, and then you can swipe up on it, and all the hitboxes are much larger and stuff, which is pretty cool. That is now in 22623, which is on top of 22H2, which means it will likely ship as a Moment early next year. And they're also introducing the system tray updates, as I just talked about. However, in this build, the drag and drop capability isn't there yet. That will likely be in a future build coming soon. Some minor updates to File Explorer. Home Now searches more recently opened Microsoft 365 cloud files for users who are signed in with their Microsoft account or have their Microsoft account connected via settings. And then File Explorer search will now show results as you type as well. So it's a little bit more responsive, which is really nice. And that is pretty much the most notable changes for the actual builds themselves. Microsoft does also mention that the new Outlook app for Windows will be rolling out in beta, replacing the mail and calendar apps soon. For Windows insiders, that is. That won't be production yet. But in the next few weeks, you'll be getting an update through the store for mail and calendar that replaces it, or at least gives you the option to switch to the new Outlook, which is the web app, the One Outlook Project Monarch stuff, which we've talked about before. And that's basically all the notable stuff. Dan, what do you think?
I think you need to get some sound paneling for your office.
Oh, am I echoing?
You have a lot. Yeah, you got a lot of echo kind of going on.
Okay.
Sounds like you're.
I might be using the wrong mic.
Go on Amazon. Go on Amazon. Invest about $30. I think they did those soft panels, or you can get this Chaotica thing that I use. Everybody keeps asking with this giant ball I have, and it basically simulates you being in a room. But
real quick, do I sound better now?
Yeah, you do.
Okay,
yeah,
I was on the wrong mic in Skype. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the power of HyperX.
Yeah.
If you're curious, we use HyperX microphones on this podcast. These are the quad. Was it the Quadcast? That's what they are.
Podcast. Yep.
Yeah. That sounds way better. So speaking of, I do have a new microphone now will be coming, which you can hear next Friday. I don't know if I can name name it, but you'll be able to hear it at least, see if there's any difference. It'll be an XLR mic, which will be kind of fun. Getting back to the Windows news, though. Yeah, I mean, these are, like I said, small updates. The snipping tool, being able to just auto-save. I use snipping tool, obviously, like all the time for things.
Yeah.
It's just one of the most used apps I have in Windows. So anything they can do to sort of improve it, is great. As far as the other things, yeah, a lot of small little changes, but yeah, I wish this stuff wasn't in dev channel. I wish it was like in release preview almost, because I'm not currently running anything on dev. Yeah, so yeah, eventually it'll get there. But yeah, one reason I said before I don't use dev channels because I hate the idea of like, oh, we're showing off new stuff that we may or may not actually ship at some point. It's just like, oh, I don't want to get like into something only to have it taken away.
Yeah.
But that's Microsoft's program.
I will say, and I might turn this into an editorial next week, but I kind of don't like the Insider program anymore. It's not fun. Like a lot of the features that I mentioned here, like there's almost all of them have a disclaimer with, we are beginning to roll this feature out, so it isn't available to all insiders just yet, as we plan to monitor feedback and see how it lands before pushing it out to everyone. Almost all of the features I mentioned have that disclaimer, which means when you actually install this build, you will likely see none of the features. And that to me is a problem for a preview program. When you sign up to be a preview user and like to preview new features, you install the new build and you don't get anything. That kind of sucks. Imagine if Apple did this or if Google did this. They announced the new OS, they released the beta, they say, here's what's in this build. When you install that build, the features are there. It's not like they're missing. If the features aren't there, they are, they're not in the changelog. So I'm really sort of tired of the Insider program doing this thing where it's like, 90% of you won't get this, 10% of you will. Good luck. Because it takes the fun away from the Insider program. I barely even tweet about like Insider stuff anymore because it's so boring. Because what's the point? No one can see the stuff. I write about it, we talk about it here, that's it. I don't even tweet about it anymore. It's so sad.
Yeah, I agree, and they obviously do this for internal testing and consistency reasons that they want to see if people are using them, and I get that. But you're also right. I guess that's where like release preview is more, that, right? But the problem with the release preview is you don't really get those features until pretty late in the process, versus what beta or dev was. Yeah, and that's frustrating. Like all the stuff that you just announced will eventually come to release preview, but probably when, like February?
Yeah, it'll be a while. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's hard to kind of get excited about it. Yeah, it's been quite a change in the program, but I guess, as they say, it is what it is. So I guess that's it for the Windows 11 stuff this week.
That's pretty much it as far as I'm aware. Nothing else to report. 22H2 is still out. It's still rolling out. They've not pulled it, so it must be doing well.
In Windows adjacent news, I'm not even sure we got this story up, but Edge Canary is switched to a new 2 updates a day model. That, now, to be clear, doesn't mean they're always going to have 2 builds every single day. Just like right now, they don't have necessarily a new build every single day. But at times, they will be updating Canary twice a day because they're like iterating so quickly, and they are getting a lot of feedback from people. Now, what's kind of cool about that, if you do go to Canary, in a second update comes during the day, you don't need to update at that moment, right? You could just keep using the browser until you want, and you close it and manually restart the browser, and it'll do the update. So it's not a big deal. But if you're really like living on the edge, Canary is the place to be. I haven't followed Edge Canary too much. I've actually stopped using that as well because, and I forgot if they fixed this or not or how it works. But like, I really enjoy the syncing feature of having my history between my phones and my PCs, my multiple PCs. And I'm not sure if you're like on Canary, if like I think you have to have like Canary on all your devices for everything to sync. Like Canary, I don't think syncs to like release and vice versa. I could be wrong on that. That might have changed, but that's one reason I kind of stopped using them. But I'll have to kind of go back and check to see if that's necessarily the case. But yeah, so Edge Canary, go for it. Obviously, a lot of innovation going on Edge, which is always kind of a nice thing. All right, I guess let's get to the big news here, which is the Surface event, which is happening on October 12th. And, it's a bit of a shame. Microsoft used to be the kings of keeping things secret. And they still may. We don't know if they have something up their sleeve on October 12th. I don't really think so. But some news has leaked out, and it wasn't from us, which is good because Microsoft gets mad when we leak stuff. But this actually comes from WinFuture DE, their German site, and they've been around for a very long time. They get their sourcing through retailers, which is pretty late in the stage, obviously. When Microsoft announces stuff on October 12th, a lot of these retailers will have their pages ready to go for pre-orders, and that's where apparently this info is coming. And it's a problem. I guess Microsoft could start with German retailers. Probably not too many. In trying to track that down, I imagine that source. Of course, that's assuming they're German, but that's probably true. But Zach, why don't you go through the news? Plus, there was the FCC stuff, which
right, we'll get to that.
That was a little unfortunate as well. I bet someone is getting yelled at somewhere about that one. So, but let's start with the WinFuture leak as first.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Everyone's leaking stuff except us this week, which is nice for a change.
Yes.
So yes, WinFuture gave us the sort of exact spec details for the CPUs we can expect in Surface Pro 9 and Surface Laptop 5. Up until now, we were sort of being vague, Intel 12th gen, possibly U series, possibly P series. We weren't too sure. We just knew it'd be Intel 12th gen for the most part. WinFuture comes in clutch here with the actual details. So they say that the Intel Core, so the Surface Laptop 5 and the Intel Surface Pro 9 will both feature U-series Intel Core processors, though slightly different between the commercial and consumer SKUs. The commercial versions, which is the Microsoft Store for Business versions, which come with Windows 11 Pro, those will have the Intel 12th gen i5 or i7, but with a slightly different clocked, or at the very least, the only difference really is one of them has vPro, which is an enterprise feature, which I think Dan knows more about. He can chime in a second. The consumer versions will be 12th gen i5 or i7, but on this side it will be the 1245U or the 1265U versus the commercial, which is the 1235U or the 1255U. The Surface Pro 5G, which is the ARM version of the Surface Pro, will be powered, of course, by the Snapdragon 86 Gen 3, but it will be branded the Microsoft SQ3, so it'll be a customized version of the 86 Gen 3, maybe slightly overclocked, maybe it has an additional GPU core. We don't know what the difference will be between the vanilla 86 Gen 3, but it will be branded SQ3. And if you want to buy a Surface Pro with any sort of cellular data, I believe the ARM version is the only version you're going to be able to configure that with. As far as I'm aware, there are no Intel versions with 5G, at least not at launch. That might come later, who knows, but at the very least at launch it'll be ARM only for any sort of mobile data connectivity. Thunderbolt 4, as expected, that was there last year as well. The WinFuture doesn't mention this, but I've heard from my own sources that the Surface Pro 9 will feature an updated display, so it can obviously go up to 120 hertz like the Pro 8 can, but I'm hearing it will be able to go down as low as 24 hertz, where necessary, where that makes sense. So it adaptive, but much lower than 60 hertz, which is what the current Surface Pro 8 can go down to. That's good news for a number of reasons. One, that should help with battery life slightly, because when you're looking at a static web page, for example, Windows doesn't need to keep refreshing at 60. It can drop down even lower, and that reduces power consumption. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that actually sort of shows up within Windows as options and whatnot. Regarding the AMD version of the Laptop 5, the WinFuture continues to say that there is no AMD option. I'm starting to hear the same. I've heard two different things. Either it's not coming at all, or it may have been delayed and is coming early next year instead. We're not too sure on what the situation with that is, but you can almost guarantee that there'll be 12th gen. AMD is still a little bit of a mystery. I can also confirm no design updates. None. They will look the same as the Surface Laptop 4. There may be a new colorway. I believe Sage will be the new color for the Laptop 5, which makes sense. We saw Sage on the Laptop Go 2 earlier this year. Surface Pro 9, same story. The design is going to pretty much be the same. We are hearing that there may be additional colors, so sapphire or forest, which is blue or green essentially, although WinFuture also mentions maybe an orange or red type color as well, though they're not too sure on that. But the blue and green ones are almost pretty much confirmed, in addition to black and silver. Unfortunately, the ARM version will be silver only, apparently, which is ridiculous. But that's Microsoft in a nutshell for you.
They do that for cost control reasons.
Yeah.
They know the 5G version it's more of a niche. As much as I'm a huge fan of all these connected devices, they're just not as ubiquitous as I would like. They're increasing, especially for business is where you're seeing the uptick there. But for consumers, obviously, especially in the United States, it's hard to get a data plan that's kind of affordable, or that doesn't hurt as much unless you're using it all the time. So it makes sense that they're going to just have a couple SKUs. I believe there are a couple, and there are a couple SKUs. It comes in 8 or 16 gigabytes, or 8 or 16 gigabytes for RAM, and then 512, 256, 512. Yeah, just 256 and 512, I think, for the storage.
So you can't get high tier sort of 32 gigs or 1 terabyte storage, unfortunately, in the ARM version. But I think that's RAM, a limitation of the 8CX, isn't it?
No, you can do 32 gigs of RAM.
Oh, you can? Okay.
In fact, the X13S, I believe, has an option for 32. I'm pretty sure. In fact, because I think that was like one of the first time we ever saw an ARM device that has an option for 32 gigabytes. The terabyte of RAM, terabyte of storage is no big deal because these will have upgradable in storage. So you can always do it yourself. And I'm sure that's not a problem. But again, they're trying to limit the SKUs, obviously, to reflect demand. And I think that's the right choice. Whereas if you're going to start doing colors, then it starts to get into stock issues. And we know how Microsoft is regarding keeping stock in check, not to have.
And it's important to remember as well, we are at the height of a component shortage, which is probably limiting, how many they can pump out and even ship to markets as well. I wouldn't be surprised if, WinFuture was saying, expect these to begin running out at late October, early November for the most part. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that's US only, with other markets coming a few weeks or maybe even a couple months later because of the component shortage, which is a shame, but there's nothing we can do, really. There's nothing Microsoft can do. I'm sure they'd like to be able to make more and sell more, but they just can't. So those are the sort of updates with the Laptop 5 and the Pro 9. Surface Studio 3 info came out this week as well, thanks to the FCC, but I've also got additional info to add on to that as well. So because of the FCC, we can confirm that the design of the Surface Studio 3 is unchanged from the Surface Studio 2. It will have the same 28-inch display with the same thick bezels, the same small computer underneath, the same hinge that lets it lay down, the same color. Although actually maybe the color is slightly brighter. I couldn't really tell in the photos. It's a very sort of low quality photo. But the design is pretty much the same, which I think is going to be a bit of a disappointment to a lot of people. I'm personally disappointed with it, but not because the design hasn't radically changed. I'm happy with everything being the same except the bezels. I just wanted thinner bezels. That's all I wanted, and they couldn't even deliver that. So I'm very upset. But what's more upsetting is what we're hearing is going to be on the inside of the Surface Studio 3. So as I mentioned a few weeks back, I was hearing, or I had heard a year beforehand that the next Surface Studio had an 11th gen Intel chip. This was in 2021, so at the time it wasn't too earth-shattering that it had an 11th gen chip. I hadn't heard anything since, so I was kind of hoping they'd updated it to 12th gen. Unfortunately not. I have heard from sources and been able to confirm that it will still be 11th gen when it ships next month. So that's going to be a real shame. Additionally, RTX graphics. I'm not 100% sure if it's 30 series or 20 series. A year ago, it was 20 series. Maybe it's been updated to 30 series. Again, I wasn't able to confirm that, but it will certainly be an RTX series of some kind. We just don't know if it will be last gen or technically current, because the 40 series has just been announced. I don't think it's available just yet. There are changes to the actual hardware, though. If you turn around the back, the I/O has been updated. So what I understand is they've removed the SD card reader. So if you're an SD card user, RIP, and they've replaced it with 2 additional USB-C ports. So there's now 3 USB-C ports on the back, all of which I'm told are Thunderbolt 4 capable. So that's good news. They've also removed 2 of the USB-A ports and turned them so they're now horizontal on the back. So there's 2 USB-A ports left. three USB-C ports and an Ethernet jack and a 3.5mm audio jack on the back. So those are the I/O changes. Also hearing that they're going to certify, or they have certified the display with Dolby Vision and Dolby Audio. So, it should sound slightly better maybe. And maybe the coloring is slightly better on the display as well. The one thing I've not been able to confirm, or I guess two things. One, will it have 120 hertz display? I don't know. I really hope it does. And two, will you be able to use the display as a monitor for another PC? Can you plug in via one of the USB-C ports a PC and use the Surface Studios monitor? I don't know. Thunderbolt 4 maybe technically could allow that to happen, but that's entirely up to Microsoft, and knowing Microsoft, they probably haven't allowed it.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back a little bit with the Pro 9 stuff for a sec. The color choices I think are still interesting. We mentioned the green and the blue, and possibly even, what was it, orange? And
yeah,
what was the other?
An orange or red one. They didn't give it a name, so.
Yeah, so I'm hoping, but you and I both agree this is a 50-50 shot with Microsoft. This is the 10th anniversary of Surface, and specifically kind of the Surface Pro. Like, they should have some kind of limited edition trophy version that people can buy, right? That's like a cool colorway that, companies do this all the time, and I don't see why they can't do it for Surface to celebrate, and hoping they do. So maybe one of these colors is that, right? Maybe it's that orange red one or whatever. Maybe that one is for an anniversary edition, and it'll be, maxed out or something else special about it, but maybe just a colorway, and it'll probably be available in like 1 SKU, right? Which would be fine. But I think that would be kind of cool. I mean, I have a ThinkPad 25th anniversary or 30th anniversary edition, whatever number it was. But like Lenovo did that. It was pretty wild. So I'm hoping that's the case there. You did mention the display, it's still going to be 120 hertz, but now it can dip down to 24. Right. That should definitely help battery life quite a bit. That's the first time I've ever seen that, right? I've never run a Windows laptop that can do that. And the brightness is still the biggest draw on the battery life for such a device, but the refresh rate stuff will definitely help, especially if you're in a Word document, just typing, or doing looking at a web page and stuff like that. The smartphones do this now, and it's one way of saving battery life. So that's a really interesting thing. Same if they go with Dolby Vision. Dolby Vision is just it's a branded kind of version of HDR, but it just means that it's certified by Dolby to meet certain color parameters. And to be fair, Microsoft's, I would say their displays have fallen behind the industry in terms of color accuracy and gamut. I'm really kind of blown away, even on budget mid-range, upper budget laptops in $1,000, even $1,000 or lower, are now getting like 100% sRGB and 97% DCI-P3, and they're hitting 500 nits of brightness. Like, that's becoming the norm. And so I'm really hoping to see those changes and, an improvement in the color accuracy and everything, which is, you would think they'll be the hallmark kind of what Microsoft does with these. And still praying that they do anti-reflective layer. No idea if that's going to happen, but I'm still praying that they do, because everybody else offers that as an option on premium devices these days. So that should be kind of cool. Yeah, laptop. Unfortunately, you mentioned this. I think we talked about last time on the podcast about no design changes, and maybe they'll do one next year or something like that. There's not a lot, outside of thinning the bezels. I don't think there's actually a lot I would change.
Yeah,
on laptop,
I agree.
Kind of interesting.
Thinning the bezels, both the Laptop 5 and the Studio 3 could do with thinning the bezels. I think that would have gone a long way for a lot of people, because otherwise the designs are great. The Laptop 5 and the Studio 3 I think are beautiful products. I just think they need thinner bezels, because everything else has thinner bezels, and it's such a small change, but it does a lot to make the device feel fresh and more modern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Dell's the king of this, right?
Yeah.
And it really gives a pretty crazy effect when you're looking at it straight on, because it's just like you're just looking at pure screen. I mean, that wouldn't prevent me from buying like a Surface laptop ever, but I agree. It's something like, because then it would have to go from like a 13.5 to like a 13.7-inch display to kind of make up the difference for it.
Yeah.
But they're already doing kind of custom screens, so I'm not sure why they wouldn't go that route, but that's kind of a shame. But we'll see. No AMD doesn't bother me in the slightest, although I haven't run the latest AMD chips, but I like Intel 12th Gen. Again, someone was asking about the chip. So these are going to be the U series processors. Yes. And yeah, there's really no difference between these and the V Pros. So they did that last time too. Mm-hmm. The V Pro stuff just means, and they were technically both V Pro. One is V Pro Essentials, the other one's V Pro Enterprise, and that's the one that's for business. It just has like a few extra things, and I won't name them because it's getting kind of complex, but it's so IT departments for remote administration and control over the devices, which is critical for businesses who buy these. And we previously discussed how actually business Surface devices is actually a big part of Microsoft's business, their own model. So them doing proper V Pro makes sense, but you don't have to worry about this idea of like, oh, should I get a V Pro chip because it's faster? Because I think WinFuture said there's a difference between the base clock speed, but I don't really care about the base clock speed. That's just how low it kind of runs at and hovers at. What matters is sort of the turbo, how they both go up to like 4.4 gigahertz, and that's really all that matters. Because if you're going to be rendering, say, video or doing something intensive, they're both going to hit 4.4 gigahertz. They both have the same amount of cache and all that kind of stuff. But these are the U series, so and when you get to U series, there's two types. There's a 9-watt U, it's called U9, and then there's U15. And these are no doubt going to be U15, and they can actually go up higher in TDP. They're not the P series. The P series are the middle child, the performance series. So those goes up to 28 watts. And I've argued that they shouldn't have done, and they shouldn't do a P series for these devices, because P series is nice. It's very powerful. I still think it's overkill for this form factor and demographic. These are ultrabooks. They're meant to be thin and light. They're meant for information workers. They're not meant for necessarily rendering 4K video all the time and doing all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't mind the P series if for the fact that the battery life is definitely going to be worse. And of course, it generates more heat, and you have to have better cooling and all that kind of stuff. They're amazing chips. Don't get me wrong. They can beat an M1 processor in terms of performance. They just they're just not as efficient. And so
I do think, maybe the P series in the 15-inch Surface laptop would have been
right.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. That would. Yeah, we both agreed that. Yeah, that would have kind of made sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, we don't have that. So I don't know. Hold on, I'm just gonna mute my phone here. I'm getting do not disturb. Yeah, and the Surface Studio 3, I don't really kind of care. It's a low-selling device, obviously, yes, so they're doing clearly a refresh. I get, maybe this could have been an opportunity to reinvent, but this is the third version, which means its future after this, I think, is up in the air.
Yes, I agree.
And so they could definitely, because I hate to say it, but this is actually what happened with Surface Book 3.
Yep, totally.
Surface Book 3 was a very minor refresh, and that's kind of what this is. And it sounds like maybe they're doing it to kind of keep current customers happy who want maybe an upgrade, but aren't necessarily looking to expand the user base, or don't think that they can necessarily.
I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if the Studio line ends here and we get a replacement in a few years' time which has a different design. It may not lay down, but it's an all-in-one designed or aimed at a different market rather. Maybe it's cheaper, maybe it's aimed at a more general sort of iMac kind of market. I would not be surprised if that's where we sort of end up with this sort of Surface all-in-one form factor.
Yeah, just like Surface Book 3 came out, and then it was like 2 years later we got Surface Laptop Studio, which I still get into debates with people. I think Laptop Studio is a killer device. I think it's such an upgrade over every way of Surface Book. But some people are really huge fans of Surface Book and are mad Microsoft killed it. But I think Laptop Studio is just such a better device.
It is a shame the book died when it did, because it arguably Intel's chips, especially the UC or even P series in the Surface Book would have been really interesting, because it would have had the additional cores in the tablet. But well, I guess maybe U series would make more sense for the book.
U series would have been, yeah,
Great.
it still would have been U series. And to put it in perspective, U series for these devices, including like Surface Pro 9 and Laptop 5, is going to be a massive upgrade from like 11th gen. Because people don't appreciate, you're getting way more cores now with this architectural shift with 12th gen. And it's just like the performance. I think the multi-core performance, it's roughly going to be like a 40% improvement, while single core will be like more around, I think, 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
But like that's a pretty big jump generation to generation. And that's just going to the same U to U, right? Obviously, they went to P, would even be more, but then you're going to negatively affect the battery life.
Yeah.
As well as thermal throttling then comes into an issue. And then you start to wonder, like, is this even worth it? So I think that people are going to be very happy with the performance. I love 12th gen U series, man. I use it on a couple of laptops now, and it's super fast. Like, it is noticeably quicker than 11th gen on the same laptop, just for everyday tasks, whether it's just web browsing or opening things. It's just everything is zippy. And to refresh people with what people, for what series is, you have the P series. Sorry, you have the P cores and E cores. The P cores are performance cores. Those are clocked higher. They have more power to them. They draw more power. They're used for whatever task is in front of you. Whatever window is actually open at that moment, and you're running, say it's a web browser, if it's Word, it's a video program, and that you're doing editing and writing a video. Those get the powerful P cores. And then you have the E cores, the efficiency cores, which there are many more of them. They run in background and handle background tasks. And what happens is, if you are using Edge and you're browsing, or you're rendering a video, say, and then you minimize that app then switches to the E core. So it's still doing work, and many E cores are doing a lot of the work. But now when you go to your next task, your performance is not going to be affected, because now you're oh, but now I want to go browse the web. But you don't want to go browse the web and have it all jittery and having issues with the process, because all your processing is being used by the renderer. And that's the point of it, is for multitaskers, so that whatever app you're switching to at that moment gets the priority in the system for performance and gets the strongest part of the CPU. While whatever you minimize is going to go back to these E cores, it's still going to be faster than whatever 11th gen was. So they're not slow, but they'll get those backup cores. And so your front-facing task is not doesn't have a performance impacted whatsoever. It's a really clever design, and it's really built for, like I said, hardcore multitaskers, for people jumping around, and you really feel the performance difference while you're using it.
Yeah.
So
real quick, just to sort of wrap this up here, we're also hearing about some accessories coming. I've heard from my own sourcing that we're expecting a Teams sort of clicker remote thing. So like a presenting remote where you can, I guess it might have a laser on it, you can point at things, / use it to go through slides on a PowerPoint presentation. So that's fun. Also, I'm hearing, and this is a weird one, I have no idea how this is going to sort of show itself, but I'm hearing of a premium audio speaker thing of some kind. I don't know if it's like an audio dock or if it's like a Bluetooth speaker thing, but I'm hearing it's a premium device. It's designed for Teams conferencing. It has omnisonic mics on it and stuff, and I also hear it's probably pretty good for music as well. But I'm hearing the price for that's going to be like $250. So this is not going to be a cheap product. I don't know how they're going to market that, or what it's going to be for. Maybe it'll be a meeting room thing.
Yeah, I think obviously this isn't a consumer play. Yeah. So this isn't a Cortana speaker part 2. Right. This is definitely going to be for office, enterprise use, private conference rooms, that kind of thing. You can buy one if you're a consumer and have a home office, obviously, but I don't think that's the target demographic for this. Yeah, it's an interesting move, but especially because Amazon literally just announced a bunch of new speakers. It's not that, so don't confuse it with that kind of thing.
And then lastly, I would want to give an update. I was hearing originally that Surface Earbuds 2 would be launching this fall, and sadly I'm hearing now that that's not happening. So no earbuds this fall if you were holding up for those. Maybe don't, because actually I'd wait, because I'm hearing they're not coming, but who knows, maybe they'll surprise us. And that also I kind of want to end this on. Basically, we know most of what's being announced here, and a lot of it isn't too exciting. A lot of the same designs, nothing groundbreaking, no new form factors. But this is Microsoft, and Microsoft have every so often pulled out a sort of big sort of surprise at the end of events. 2016 or 2015 was the Surface Book. We had 2019 with the Surface Duo and the Surface Neo, and now we're at 2022. Maybe not, but we could maybe see a preview of the Surface Duo 3 that's coming next year. I'm not hearing that that's going to happen. In fact, I don't think it will. But stuff like that is possible because this is Microsoft and they have been known to tease the future, especially since this is 10 years. They could be like, this has been 10 years of Surface. These are our best products yet. And, here's to 10 more, and here's a preview at some of that. And maybe they could do like one of those things. But I don't think it's likely because Microsoft got burned real hard with the Neo. And I think they're still recovering from that disaster.
Yeah. I just want them to talk about Surface Duo 2 and Android 12L briefly.
I would like a minute. Yeah, a minute. Because there is no Duo. There's no Duo at this event. There is not a Duo 3. There's no Duo 2 Plus. There's nothing. So people will immediately think the Duo is dead because there's not a new Duo this year. So I think it would be really important for them to just, even if it's 2 minutes, to just be like, our last year, our portfolio has come a long way, or our customers are very happy, satisfaction rates up. And
we've seen momentum.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Duo
all that crappy marketing terms, all that stuff can certainly be said. They can then spend a minute going, and our Surface Duo 2 customers are absolutely loving all the stuff we've been adding over the last year. And in the next few weeks, we'll be delivering 12L and maybe a very short preview of what that looks like. Yeah, and then they can move on. That's all they need to do, and I think that will keep the haters at bay.
yeah. If they don't do that, I'd be really just disappointed because it just seems like such an obvious low-hanging fruit kind of thing to do that won't cost them money. Like you said, just 2 minutes on it, right? You don't need to spend a lot of time and just have little sizzle reel showing Android 12L. I think you already talked about how there's a new function coming with the pen where you click it and it gives you options for which apps you want to launch, which reflects how the current behavior of Slim Pen in Windows 11, like stuff like that, right? Show the pen clicking, a little window popping up, like at least that'll be exciting and kind of get people like, oh yeah, that thing still exists. And then I don't know, I'm still hoping the surprise would be like, and I know you said that there's almost no chance of this, but they upgrade the internals a little bit for Duo 2.
I wish.
It still would be cool if they just put either a faster processor or even just a little bit more RAM. Now it has 8. Because how much RAM does it have?
8.
Was it
8 gigs?
8. Yeah, put 12 in there. 12 gigs of RAM. Maybe improve the display. I don't know, something like that. We made some minor improvements as well. We're calling it Surface Duo 2 Plus.
I would be happy with just more colors. Give me a blue or red one.
Right. Yeah. Same thing there. I still, I like my black one obviously, but I still kind of think I want a white one sometimes. But yeah, a different colorway. Sage green would look dope. That would look so cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But now we're getting into the realm of fantasy. Unfortunately. Was there anything else I want to say about the Surface stuff? Yeah, the earbuds too. That's a shame. On the other hand, we just saw a big launch, right? So Apple just released their iPod Pros 2.
AirPod, not iPod.
AirPod, whatever. I can't keep up with their dumb marketing. I'm currently using the brand new Bose Quiet Comfort earbuds 2. I believe that's the name of them. And of course, you still have Samsung out there. You have a bunch of Eufy or Anker, I believe, has some more affordable options on the market. And then you have Sennheiser, probably. I don't follow those. I'm just saying that space is super competitive. It's gotten a lot more competitive now because it's before the holiday season. I'm not confident. I believe in the Microsoft does, and Surface team does exceptionally good audio. They've always actually set the bar, I would say, for laptops, especially in audio. It's always been just really good. And the audio on the earbuds is good too, but I'm not completely confident that they could come out with a product that would necessarily come close to competing with kind of what's out there right now. Like I said, I'm using the new Bose, and these things, I don't know there's no other earbud right now that can convince me to switch. These things are amazing. I mentioned them last week that I use them on the couch at night while watching videos on the laptop because there's no delay, as well as I could watch TV and set the quietness of them. I use them at the gym. I use them, of course, on the airplanes. The Verge just did a review of the new AirPods, and the Bose beat them in terms of noise reduction. Like,
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty
I don't
sure
know.
that the original earbuds were already sort of a step behind the competition when they came
Oh
out.
yeah,
Like they weren't
yeah,
competitive, and they were very expensive. Remember when they were announced at $250, and then when they actually came out, they were $50 cheaper because
yeah.
there was no way at $250
Right.
were people going to buy that. Even $200 was probably asking for a lot. Surface
Yeah,
earbuds really should have been $99. I think they would have been
yeah.
more successful at 99. But
Hmm.
especially since you got Nothing with the Nothing Earbuds One, which I did try briefly. They were great, and they were $99, and they were better than the Surface Earbuds in basically every way. So yeah, it's a real competitive market, the earbuds market, and I think one of the reasons why the earbuds 2 aren't coming this fall as well is because there is no Duo 3 this fall. Originally, when that there was supposed to be Duo Lite or Duo Go, whatever it would have been called, maybe it would have made sense to ship those alongside that, but since that's been cancelled, I assume they're just gonna not do earbuds 2 and wait until next fall when they have an actual phone. Then they can be like, here's the phone, here's the earbuds, have fun.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what they can do with earbuds to make them, because like I get they're also not necessarily trying to go after the same market as like Bose and Apple here, right? These are definitely more like office productivity and all that, and they're super comfortable. The audio is pretty good on them, but they need to be a little bit smaller with that circle, perhaps. Maybe they should do a squircle rounded square to match everything else. I don't know. That probably look dumb too. But need at least like the skin sensor, so when you pull them out, they auto pause whatever you're playing.
Wireless charging in the
Wireless
case
charging.
nice.
Although Bose just removed wireless
Did they
charging,
really?
so apparently you can
Wow.
do that. Yeah. So I like it doesn't bother me, but you apparently you can do that and get away with it. I don't think Microsoft can though. I think
No.
you're right. I think they should have wireless
Yeah.
charging. ANC is interesting because especially at that $200 price point, you're like, how do these not have
Right.
ANC, right? Because that's kind of the standard now. Yeah, so I don't know, they got to kind of rethink that product. And I agree if they launch it with a Duo 3, it would make much more sense at least for that marketing.
Real quick, Dan, before we move on, can I call you back because your audio is cutting in and out and it's kind of making it hard to understand what you're saying sometimes.
Sure.
So
Okay.
keep your audio running, just don't pause it, and then I'll just have to cut it in the edit.
Okay.
All right, one sec. I've got to quit Skype and open Skype again because I'm pretty sure maybe it's my end that's causing the cackling. All right, here we go. Hello. All right, can you say just a sentence just so I can hear your audio?
Yep. But your microphone is back on the
Is
back
it?
one.
Of course it is. Hang on. All right, just say.
Do I sound better?
Yeah, keep talking.
Hopefully I'm not cutting out. I don't know
Oh, you are a little
why
bit.
it would be.
Could you try quit Skype and then relaunch Skype, the actual application, not just hang up on the call?
Sure.
All right, thanks. Call me back when you're done. Yeah, I don't know why his audio is doing that. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Can you hear the rain? It's really raining here. I'm maybe turn my mic up. Oh, there it is. All right. If that's not fixed it, then I just don't know.
Maybe think. Is it better?
Well, for that one word, it was great. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll keep trying to talk to see if this is any better.
It seems.
I don't know.
It seems to be okay. We'll just have to keep going from here and fix it in the edit. All right, so we're done with that section. Do you want to move on to Intel stuff?
Oh, everybody's saying my audio is fine on their end, so maybe it's just yours.
Oh, my bad. I thought it was. I could have sworn it was the system. All right.
All right, going on quickly. So that's the Surface event. We'll see what happens October 12th. Stay tuned for that. Moving on, Intel 13th Gen. So this isn't a huge surprise, although I have more stories coming out about this I got to work on, including the photos from the tour of the fab and their their testing facilities. But interestingly enough, Intel 13th Gen wasn't really supposed to happen. They were supposed to switch to their other design at this point, but they learned and figured that they could squeeze more out of the 12th Gen design, and they sure did. So they announced these new chips this week. They go on sale October 20th. And these are just the desktop, though they did talk briefly about mobile too. So mobile processors are coming out. I don't know. I would say, they'll probably be showing off at CES, of course. That's usually when they do it, which means March, April, you'll probably start to see them trickle out depending on production. So if you're wondering why Surface isn't going to have 13th Gen, that's why, because we're quite a cycle away before these things will come out. And again, they're not going to be a huge change. They're going to be definitely faster, more performance, and that's where Intel is focused on right now. So what they did with the 13th Gen is they doubled the E-cores, which I was just talking about before. So it goes to the top tier device processor now is the Core i9 13900K. Has a whopping 24 cores, which is so absurd. I mean, if you just remember years ago, we were like on quad cores and 8 cores and stuff. So it's a 24 core. You get 8 performance cores and 16 efficient cores, 32 threads. It goes up to basically 5.8 gigahertz, but they're going to offer apparently a limited edition version that is clocked at 6 gigahertz, just to have that nice round number for people with OCD. 6 gigahertz, that's where we're at, folks. That is absurd. I personally saw them overclock that chip to 8 gigahertz. It is absolutely capable of doing that. That said, you will never do that to yourself unless you're a complete wizard. They did it with liquid nitrogen. So they were literally pouring liquid nitrogen on the chip while running it, overclocking it. But we saw it real time behind glass. They did it, and it actually hit 8 gigahertz. So but that's kind of like funny, but that means for real overclockers, like people at home, you're going to definitely be able to hit 7 gigahertz or slightly higher than that, like 7.1, 7.4. Like you'll be able to actually do that and use it. So these are absurdly fast. That's the Core i9 13900K. What's nice too, these use the same socket as 12th Gen. So if you have a current motherboard, you can literally just pop this one in. You would need a BIOS upgrade to recognize it. So you'd have to check your motherboard's downloads feature and make sure you have the latest BIOS, but it should enable it. It is the same price, $589 as the 12th Gen. So they didn't jack the price on that one, the i9 13900K. It also uses Intel UHD 770 graphics. They do sell the KF version. So KF just means it doesn't have its onboard GPU. It doesn't use the Intel UHD 770, which is fine if you're building your own system and you're just throwing in like an external GPU, which most of us would do anyway. And so you won't have a fallback to the default graphics, but if you're putting in a 3060 or you're going up to the 4000 series, this doesn't matter. Those are slightly cheaper. So instead of $589, you get $564. The bottom tier they announced right now, there are definitely more SKUs coming, but the bottom tier is the i5 13600KF. That has 14 cores, 6 are performance, 8 are efficient, 20 threads, hits 5.1 gigahertz, and goes for $294, which is actually slightly more than the 12th Gen. So it looks like on the bottom end, they actually raised their prices a bit. In terms of performance, they also uses now faster DDR5. They're going up to 5600 DDR5, which is pretty cool. And they do have a new motherboard, standard Z7, the Z790, which you'll see from all your major manufacturers. So that is just going to offer support for one extra USB 3.2 port, so that's the good one, up to 20 PCIe 4.0 lanes compared to 12, fewer PCI 3.0 lanes, up to 8 compared to 16. And yeah, just a couple more ports and all that kind of stuff. So they kind of reconfigured things to make it a little bit more modern. They have a new overclocking app for desktop users, which is much more simple. That means this is kind of where they've been going. HP does this. They have a very simple overclocking system. To make it user friendly, because overclocking used to be like, oh, you have to go into the BIOS and like do this, like change things and hope it works. Now they have a tuning utility that's going to be a lot simpler, so that novices can go and experiment this stuff without damaging it. Don't forget the K chips are overclockable, all of them, including the i5. Yeah, performance improvements, I believe, over their previous gen is like between 6 and 58%, depending on the games. So you're going to get a lot more performance out of this. Marvel Spider-Man Remastered has a 58% improvement. Trying to think what else. There's a lot of info there and the technicalities in terms of what they've actually improved and everything. Yeah, it does support PCIe Gen 5, which is insane because most of us are just getting used to 4.0. Gen 5 is just going to be absurdly fast for storage. Yeah, and Thunderbolt 4, Killer Wi-Fi 6E, all that is built on board as well. So it should be kind of cool stuff. I'm sure we'll be having reviews of that in the coming weeks. They do look to be beating AMD a little bit here in terms of single core speed, as they usually do, but the multi-core is no joke either. So very cool stuff. Very excited to see the mobile chips. Obviously, now it's probably like I said at CES, but you're going to get the same thing, more performance. They're going to just get faster than they are now and have more cores, which is pretty wild. But they, if you haven't seen the benchmarks on Intel 12th Gen, Intel really did come out swinging in terms of performance. Where they need to work on is efficiency. And I did talk to them about that. And that seems to be what Lunar Lake is going to be about in terms of improving efficiency. Because, yeah, these can still draw quite a lot of power, just like those new GeForce 4000 cards can draw a lot of power. I think basically, I was just going to say, if you max out your i9 and a 4000 series card, you're basically running a space heater, I think, in terms of power draw. It's it's a little bit absurd.
Because you can't run that in the UK because the electricity will be too expensive. When is Lunar Lake? Is that next year? Is that like, are they just yearly, annually?
Oh, I forgot the actual time frame for Lunar Lake. I think it's 2024, I want to say, but they have very specific deadlines and guidelines for their evolution of their chips, and they're basically doing it every year now, which is kind of cool. It's what their partners expect, it's what the market expects, it's what consumers expect. And so they're going to be basically every year on a cadence hitting these sort of new things. So next year we should see, I believe the shift is to their new tile system that they're going to be doing. I believe that's the next one. So
is this year, is the Intel 3010 Raptor Lake? Is that what that is?
Yes, Raptor Lake.
And then older Lake was 12th gen. Okay, got it. See, that's yearly is a problem for Surface because they're already like struggling to keep up.
Yeah. So the 13th gen also bring lots of other stuff. I gotta write a bunch of these articles. Like, there's all sorts of cool things that's coming. One of the things I'll briefly tease about is, so I'm a huge fan of the human presence detection, this idea that the laptop detects when you're in front of it, so that when you're in front of it, it can it'll stay unlocked. If we walk away, it will auto lock, and then when you come back in front of it, the display will turn on and like unlock the device for you using Windows Hello. So right now they currently do that by you can do it with a camera always on, but no one really likes that one. And what we've been seeing instead of is a time of flight sensor. So on fancy high-end laptops, they put a little time of flight sensor, which is like you see on camera phones too, that sits by the camera. And what it's doing, it's like almost like a radar, and it detects basically a human form in front of it. And so it doesn't need to be running the camera. It detects, the time of flight sensor detects a person there, then it turns on the camera and turns on Windows Hello, and everything comes to life. But the problem with that, it's a time of flight sensor. It's an extra sensor you got to put in. So they demoed this new system that they're working on, which will be coming to laptops. Uses, I think I've mentioned this before, uses Wi-Fi, and uses the Wi-Fi radio waves basically to detect people around it. So the laptop doesn't even need to be open. There's no sensor. It's just using on the Wi-Fi signal to detect people on there. And then that's going to do this function as well, which is pretty wild, but it should also reduce costs. So Intel is working on quite a lot of interesting technology that I think is going to be make laptops very exciting in the coming years. So that is Intel 13th Gen. Like I said, October 20th goes on sale, and you'll be able to buy everything on that day, including those new motherboards as well. Or you can use your existing motherboard and just drop in a new chip. The bigger news, or at least more relevant to our audience, was Intel Unison. So I think I teased this last time, but Intel Unison is the result of Intel buying Screenovate last year, which was an Israeli startup. Screenovate also was the company behind the software like Dell Mobile Connect. I believe Asus also licensed it. So companies would go license Screenovate software, and someone, I don't know if it was Screenovate or Dell, would customize it and make it all Dellish and stuff like that. And what this software did was it allowed you to connect an Android phone or an iPhone up to your PC, much like PhoneLink. But this came out 4 years ago. Dell announced this and we're showing it off. And if you bought a specific XPS, well, if you bought XPS laptops and specific other Dell laptops that were like certified to run it, you would get this pre-installed on there. For a little while, though, they did have a loophole where you can download the app from the store, and then you had to go download the physical drivers from Dell. And if you did that, you kind of run on any system, which is pretty wild. The thing was, it couldn't guarantee the performance and stability, which is the reason why PhoneLink doesn't do this. And the difference is, PhoneLink relies on a Wi-Fi connection, just your local network, and both devices have to be connected, or if they're cellular, you can use that as well. And it's fine. The beauty of Microsoft's system is it works basically on any PC with any Android phone, and there's no drivers, so stability is never affected on your device. The downside is, well, so what Dell Mobile Connect uses, what Screenovate uses, and now what Intel Unison uses, is it uses a combo of Bluetooth to find the devices, but then uses what's called Wi-Fi Direct. So it doesn't need a local network. Instead, the devices talk to each other directly via the Wi-Fi channels, which means you get much higher bandwidth. And that connection is a lot more locked. So one of the problems people have with the Wi-Fi network version and PhoneLink, sometimes the stability of it is not that great, and you have problems connecting and all that. This not only will connect directly and be faster, more reliable, you can use it without being on a Wi-Fi network. Like you can be on an airplane and use these directly and use the system, which is pretty wild. So what can you do with this? Well, you can, of course, transfer photos. You can drag and drop stuff. You can copy and paste. You can make phone calls and receive phone calls. You can send and receive text messages. You can, was that it? Maybe that was it. I'm probably leaving something off. But you can do like all the stuff that PhoneLink kind of does, but perhaps the bigger story is you can do this with an iPhone. How are they doing it with iPhone? Well, they use a lot of standard APIs, including some that are done by Apple for accessing notifications. But yeah, I mean, you could, it doesn't matter if it's iMessage, you just connect this up, text message comes in, you'll get a notification at the top of the screen, and you can, and they even had a feature where the notification could come in and it would be obscured until you moused over it. So it was a privacy feature in case someone sent you something and someone's looking at your shoulder and you didn't want to reveal it. You could then hover over it and then it will show the message, which was kind of cool. But then you can respond to message and text and yeah, pull your photos off and work on it. And it's like way faster. They even have the ability to stream apps, even on iOS. I'm pretty sure that was the case. You could definitely do it on Android. But this is the first stage. So how this is going to roll out is Intel 12th Gen, some Evo laptops will start getting this towards the end of the year. I believe HP, Acer, and Lenovo are the first companies who have signed up for it, basically. When 13th Gen mobile comes out, 13th Gen Evo devices, you'll see it go more widespread. It will be kind of like OEMs, PC makers will be able to pre-install this app. So you just get it with the out-of-box experience, which is kind of cool. But Intel also wants to make the app downloadable. What's interesting, though, is Intel doesn't want to have this like exclusive to devices. They really do want this to be on every Windows PC that they can get it on. So even though they're starting off slow and only kind of running it on validated systems, they want to expand that so that basically every PC can get it. I even asked them about AMD and Qualcomm, what they think about that. And you're like, hey, we're open to it. We'll talk to them if they want to, but yeah, we can have it run on there. And they want to be the de facto app for connecting your phone up to your PC. And I argued for this at the beginning of the year because Google announced their Fast Pair or whatever it was for Windows, where you'd be able to do some of these features, but it was only going to work on like select Acer laptops. And it was just like, it was so limited. I was like, what needs to happen is like Intel, Microsoft need to talk to each other to make this stuff work, but at the lower level of the OS. And that's what Intel's doing. So Intel is working with the drivers. Don't forget, Intel controls the comm stack on many devices. They own the Bluetooth, they own the Wi-Fi. They do this. When you buy their chips, you get that with them. They control the driver. So they're optimizing this to work with Intel processors at a level that Screen of 8 could never do before. And this is just all the first kind of stage. In terms of long term, I think they probably definitely want to bring app streaming there as well as more features. They're also very open. They want to work with Microsoft. They want to work with other manufacturers, HP and Lenovo directly. They want to work with everyone and have this as an open standard almost for how you do this, because they said that's the only way we're going to be able to kind of solve this problem instead of having a bunch of competing options, half of which can only do certain things. Like right now, even phone link, you may say it's kind of cool. It's kind of cooler though if you have like a Samsung phone, right? It seems just kind of unfair, right? So like, you know, they want to kind of get away from that. And I think it's a really cool thing. You know, I demoed it and I've used Dell Mobile Connect before, and it's really good performance. But they demoed their version, which has been revamped and has a better kind of UI to it, all that kind of stuff. And it was great. I mean, the performance should be a lot better. We'll see how it goes, but they, like I said, want to be the default standard for this stuff. Well, how Microsoft responds to this, I don't know. They will talk to Microsoft, I'm sure. I'm sure they're going to have that conversation. But they can definitely weave this stuff more into Windows. And if Microsoft wants to replace Phone Link at some point with this, that could probably happen too. But like I said, Phone Link has that benefit of you don't need drivers. And that's the only kind of hiccup here is like you start introducing drivers, you can run into perhaps stability performance because you're now installing something on top of the system at a pretty low level. So that's the only thing there. But like I said, it starts rolling out towards the end of this year, and you'll see more with 13th Gen in 2023. And yeah, it's a pretty big project for them. I'm actually really excited about this. Zach, I know you said you don't really care. You don't really use any of this stuff.
The only feature I use in Phone Link is notification relay. Like just seeing my first notifications in the Windows notification shade is all I use it for. I don't really open Phone Link. I'm not in there looking at things.
For me, the photo stuff is huge.
Yeah.
Like being able to drag and drop photos.
I'll use that sometimes as well. Yeah. But
rarely. You use OneDrive. You know, if you're backing up to OneDrive,
you
can kind of just use that.
I probably do that more. Yeah.
But what's neat about like this is like you can just directly share to another app on your system, and it's just like it's a more native approach. Obviously, this is what Apple does with its iPhones, and that's kind of what they want to kind of compete with. Yeah. So
I don't use screen mirroring. I don't use the apps feature. I don't use phone calling.
And you're right about the same apps thing for me, but it's because the performance and the feel of it isn't as good, right? When you're using Wi-Fi Direct on these, like the performance, it starts to feel like a native app at that point. Like now when you click it and it launches, you're like, oh, it would launch in its own little window and it'll be perfectly shaped and like you can actually interact with it almost like in real time. I think the Wi-Fi Direct makes an argument for running these apps directly on the PC, whereas right now when you're doing it over Wi-Fi, the lag delay, it's just not the same, as well as you're running into all these other issues. So that feature is not coming right now from Intel, but they have to absolutely be working on that and talking about it maybe for phase 2, because the software from Screen of 8 did that. So I don't see why they wouldn't do it themselves. But there's a lot of optimizations there that they can do. But I imagine this is going to be a part of the continuance evolution of Intel Evo, which is a set of standards set by Intel for OEMs to follow. To get that Evo stamp, you have to have a certain amount of battery life, a certain type of display, instant on, Wi-Fi 6 and higher, Bluetooth certain higher, Thunderbolt 4. Like you have to have like all these like minimum standards of quality to get the Evo sticker. And they've been slowly kind of increasing it. Like now they kind of moved up to like a full HD webcam, which they're not mandating, but they're like recommending. Could they do that because of Dell? Because Dell still has 720p cameras. But I imagine this is going to be a part of Evo at some point as well. So yeah, I don't know. Cool stuff. We'll see what happens, though, with Intel and Unison. I'm excited about it. Hopefully, everyone else is as well. Moving on. What do we got here? Oh, the Surface Duo 2 camera hack. This is just kind of a fun story because this person...
it's crazy.
Yeah. Ever since the Duo 2, well, I remember when the photos first leaked of Duo 2.
Me too.
And it had the rear camera hump, and everybody freaked out, and it's like, that can't be it. They're not going to do this.
I explicitly remember people saying that I was a fool for thinking those photos were real. Even though I'd totally seen the thing months before, and I was like, oh, this is the thing, here it is. And nobody believed me.
Yep. And listen, Microsoft, I think they did a great job. The biggest complaint on Duo, well, not the biggest, but one of the biggest complaints of Duo 1 was the camera. It only had one. It was a front-facing camera that was reallocated to be a rear-facing camera through some clever software. But while it got you by, it was so far from what was the standard of the day. And I was actually surprised with Duo 2. Not only did they put a rear-facing camera, they added 3.
Yeah.
And like they added the wide and a telephoto. And they're decent cameras. They're not amazing, but like they feel a lot more. They feel like a good camera from last year. You know, I said they competed with my iPhone 12 minis cameras, absolutely. But they did a good job, and they also used some computational photography. They licensed, I believe, through a Japanese company partner to help them with that. But the cameras got really good, but people didn't like the design because, it added a hump. And the hump seems bigger only because the Duo 2 is so thin that, like, the cameras protrude a little bit. But they did, I think, a clever job with angling it. So when you reverse fold it, it still kind of claps and all that kind of stuff. But some people were still really unhappy with it. They preferred a completely flat and flush design to Duo 1. And I get that. In an ideal world, it would be like that. But that's not, unfortunately, how lenses work these days. So this guy, Phil Nall, I want to say I've actually met him before, but I'm not sure if that's true. But he managed to pick up, luckily, a broken Surface Duo 2. It was cracked and everything. So he only got it for $430. Which was good. It was still a risk financially, but he loved the device.
He wanted to break it even further.
Wanted to break it even further. So he, took it apart, removed the back panel, and physically removed the camera module and all its components, and then closed it back up and put like some filler material in there. And then because the front case cover was cracked, he put on a dbrand skin, which is such a good trick if you ever crack if you crack the glass on the Duo 2, the front glass or the back glass, like you could just throw on a dbrand skin, and you never know. A lot of people do that. For all I know, my glass is cracked. I have no idea. It could be cracked underneath, right? I could pull it off and just be like, oh, when did that happen? So he did that, and he put it on the back. So it looks like it has like a flat camera module on the back because of the Duo 2 skin. He could put on and he mentioned this, he could put on a Duo 1 skin. It won't match 100%, but you're talking millimeters off. It's pretty darn close, and that would give him a complete flush look. So it looks it's...
what would be totally baller? If you buy 2 Duos, you take the front panel of one of them, then take the whole back of the other one, take the camera bump away, and then put the front panel from the other one on the back of the camera one that you just took off. Then you'd have 2 fronts, and it'd be smooth, and it would look awesome.
There you go. You could do that as well. It's a little expensive just to break the functionality of the device. So obviously, what's the downside of all of this? Well, of course, you're going to void your warranty.
Yeah.
obviously, when you launch the camera app freaks out and crashes, which is a shame because now you have that front-facing camera, which still technically should work. That hasn't been disconnected. He did say, though, he tried Instagram and Lightroom, and they both still recognized a front-facing camera, so you do have that going for you. The irony, though, is that he did put on the debrand skin, and now when you reverse fold it, well, it still doesn't lay completely flush because now the skins are in the way. So, but it's close enough. And he likes it, though, because when he lays it down flat on the table, it lays completely flat and doesn't rock, and it's better for inking and all that kind of stuff. So he's happy with it. And the bonus feature is he made a 22-minute video detailing exactly showing the entire process of how he did it. And obviously, this is not for the faint of heart. He obviously has some background in electronics and knows what he's doing in terms of removing wires and how to watch out for current and all that kind of stuff, and especially how he fills in the gap where the module is. But it's a really good video, and like if you wanted to do this yourself, you could absolutely follow. He says this is not a tutorial video, and most people shouldn't do this, but he was surprised everything worked and all that, and he's happy. So I don't know. I thought it was a funny story. I think it's just funny how like hardcore some people are about their devices. The big question is what happens with Duo 3's design. Do we still get a camera hump?
I think there will certainly be a camera bump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has to be something just because the device be that thin.
Everything has a camera bump. You can't make a phone these days without a camera bump because otherwise the camera won't
Apple
be able to
can't do it.
No, not even Apple. If Apple can't do it, nobody can, and that's the truth.
Yeah. Getting there. They're getting better, and it will get thinner. And so I don't think we should necessarily expect the camera bump to be as thick. But yeah, there'll always be some raised lenses.
And I don't see why they don't do this, because I wouldn't be averse to it, is you just make the device as thick as what the camera bump is going to be anyway. Which doesn't work for the Duo's design, admittedly, but it does work for a normal slab phone. Like if the iPhone mini was, 2 millimeters thicker, the bump would be gone. And you would get a lot more battery life as a result, which I wouldn't be upset about. And, but they don't do it. They always want thinner phones. Well, it's so annoying.
There is a threshold. I mean, what makes the Duo so cool is how thin it is. I've mentioned that before. It does, like people don't appreciate what Microsoft's engineering has done until you actually grab one and hold it and you open it up and you're like, damn, like it's pretty impressive. I'm impressed they got such a good camera on the back of it as it is. Like it's I mean, for me, it's a great camera. It's not amazing. I mean, I would always take a better camera, but it gets the job done. I'm pretty happy with it. So, but there we go. We'll see what Microsoft does with this going forward, which should be interesting. All right. Oh, my puppy just ran into the room. She's going to want to go for a walk soon. We got to do the reviews. Oh, she wants pets. Okay, hey, doggy.
He's currently petting his or her dog.
She's a very excited. Oh, now she's okay, girl. She just woke up from her nap, so she's just realized she's alive, I guess. Anyway, review roundup. Oh, this just went up. The Asus VivoBook S14X. This is actually really cool.
Did you just call it a VivoBook?
Yeah, it's a VivoBook.
Isn't it Vivo?
Vivo. It's a dumb name.
It is a dumb name. You're right.
VivoBook. Asus. I mean, how do you pronounce Asus? Is it Asus or Asus?
I say Asus.
Yeah, I've heard of Asus.
Have you? So. You're probably right, to be honest. This is the British pronunciation.
VivoBook S14X. This is a cool laptop. Here's why. It's got a really nice OLED display. What is the refresh rate on it? I believe it's 120 hertz refresh, which is pretty awesome, plus OLED. It's got thin bezels and all that kind of jazz. But it does have an H series processor, the i7-12700H, so 12th gen. That's a powerful processor. That's the big 45-watt one. But it has no graphics card. It just uses Intel Iris Xe graphics. So this is for people who really want to have a strong, powerful processor and don't care about like gaming. or necessarily like video stuff, right? They just do a lot of crunching. You really want a powerful processor, and you get that in a pretty cool slim design. They also have this like really cool software that kind of what we're just talking about. They call it Glide X. I have a photo of it with my Duo, where you can turn your like phone into a secondary display. So I have it in the photo, and it's through a wired connection, although you can do it wirelessly too, where I set up the Duo and flip it up, and the Duo now acts as a secondary display for the laptop, and you can mouse over to it
Nice.
and run apps and stuff like that. It's pretty wild. And with Duo, you can still have the other half of the phone still running, which is even cooler. But yeah, it's a fun laptop. The audio is probably okay. The keyboard's really good on it though, but they did a really nice job with it. Yeah, just really great stuff. Let's go over to Overwatch 2 review. Okay. EPOS GTW270 earbuds review, a superior sound experience for PC and cloud gaming. That was done by Jez, so he likes that one. Speaking of, people wondering where Jez is. Jez won't be on this podcast very often. His idea was, guys, have me on the podcast. It'll be great. We're like, okay, we'll give it a shot. And then it was like, all right, yeah, we'll keep you on the podcast. And he's like, guys, I don't have enough time to be on the podcast. So that's why he's not on the podcast anymore. He feels he's doing too much podcasting and is too busy. So he'll be on for any big gaming news, which is probably like once a year for us. So sorry. You can listen to him on the Xbox 2 podcast. Anyway, back to our normal scheduled programming. AMD Ryzen got reviews. So we had the Ryzen 5 7600X review. That's the entry-level 6-core processor. We also have the AMD Ryzen 7 7700X review, which is their more powerful processor, obviously. So those got both 4 out of 5 stars. We also did review Grounded, the new Xbox game, which is definitely a pretty cool game. Actually, I think it's one of my most interesting ones out there. And I think that's kind of about it, actually. So
before we move on, an important topic that we do need to talk about that we totally forgot happened this week. Thanks to Javid for pointing that out. Swiftkey on iOS is going away.
Right.
Which is kind of a big deal. Yeah, so if you are an iOS user and you have been using Swiftkey up until now, say your final goodbyes, because on October 5th, they are delisting the app from the App Store. And while the app will continue to function if you have it installed, they're not going to update it any further. And, if you uninstall the app or if you buy a new iPhone in the future, you will not be able to reinstall Swiftkey. Interesting choice. They don't give a reason as to why they're making that decision, but I have a theory. It's because the Swiftkey team moved under the Android org at Microsoft earlier this year. If you remember, I reported that Microsoft did a reorg, and within that reorg, they created a new division called the Microsoft Android Platform Experiences team, or org, or whatever. And underneath that team or org has a number of different products. Surface Duo, of course, Android that runs on Surface Duo, Android in general, so any Android efforts, I believe the Windows subsystem for Android comes under there, as well as some future efforts around Android and Teams devices in the future. Microsoft Phone Link, so the Windows app, Phone Link, as well as the Android sort of alternative to that, and Swiftkey. Swiftkey went under that team as well. So I assume the people who are in charge of Swiftkey now are like, who cares about iOS? Let's get rid of it. And I think the reason for that is partly nobody was using the iOS version. The usage numbers for the iOS version must be very small. Because if it had a big user base, they wouldn't be killing it. That wouldn't be happening at all. But I assume low numbers and also them now being an Android-led team probably led to the decision of them taking away or killing Swiftkey for iOS, which is... I never use Swiftkey for iOS. I always use the stock keyboard. I've always found third-party keyboards on iOS to be kind of lame. They're always not as well integrated, and that's Apple's fault. Apple doesn't give developers the tools they need to great keyboard experiences compared to Android at least. But yeah, sad story for Swiftkey users. If you are an iOS user, your alternative is use another third-party keyboard or use Apple's keyboard or buy an Android device and use Swiftkey. That is entirely your call. And then I guess maybe we should mention Stadia. Stadia's died. Oh. It died. It's gone now, and Game Pass wins. There you go. That's all we need to mention.
Yeah, no one's surprised about Stadia, which was... The sad thing about it is like even when they announced it, I was like, they're going to kill this off.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
like, people used to make fun of Microsoft for, oh, they just kill everything. I'm never buying another thing from Microsoft Consumer because they just kill stuff. Google is way worse than Microsoft is. Um, like they don't even like seem to give this stuff much of a shot. And I kind of feel bad because Stadia's technology was actually really good. Their business model was a little bit off, and they're obviously playing against some big hitters, including Sony and Microsoft and even Amazon is there, right? Uh, but like, they don't have the clout when it comes to publishers and doing all that. And that's where the market is going. Everybody's buying up publishers right now to do in-house games as much as they can. And I kind of get that. And Google just, it's like they tried a little bit and they're like, nah, this isn't working, just kind of gave up. I think too early almost, because the thing with cloud gaming is it still feels very niche and be starting, right? Like I feel like had they stuck with it in a couple of years, maybe it would have taken off. Because we don't even know how well Xbox is doing with game streaming. We know Game Pass does well, has been increasing, but like what are the actual numbers for people doing game streaming? We don't know. And it just feels early for me. And it feels because that too early, to give up. But that's what Google kind of does. And
Yeah.
now people are getting kind of really frustrated with this. I mean, they also, got or it was announced that they canceled basically Pixelbook 2 or whatever version they were going to be doing next. The next Pixelbook is gone. Like they're not doing those anymore. They're doing the phones, but they're not doing any more of the Chromebook stuff. So they keep doing the OS and relying on their partners, but they kind of tried it to be a little bit like Surface here, and they were just like, no, that's not really working out. And they sure as heck didn't iterate nearly as quickly as they probably should have with that device line to kind of keep it relevant. Plus, that device came out, it was like $1,100 and it was or $1,400, and it was like as expensive as a Windows PC. And then people are like, wait, why don't I just buy a Windows PC at this price point, even though people said it was good? So yeah, that's
I'm
Google.
just glad that Microsoft finally got revenge for Google essentially being the reason why Windows Phone died. Now Microsoft has the platform that succeeded, and Google Stadia can die because that's what Android did to Windows Phone.
Right. So there you go. All right, I guess we'll kind of wrap up the podcast here. Thing of the week, I guess.
Yeah, my thing of the week, you may have missed it because I certainly did, but Fitbit launched some new wearables this week. They launched the Fitbit Versa 4 and the Fitbit Sense.
Well, they're shipping now, right?
They were announced probably ages ago, yeah, but they started to ship.
Yeah.
Weirdly, there was no real review period. Like I think one or two sites that I follow frequently actually reviewed it, and no YouTubers did. Like it was a real under the radar product. But I ordered mine and it arrived today, this morning. I didn't do much research. I just assumed it was going to be a better Sense one because I was using the Sense
hilarious.
one. Right. I was using the Sense one, and before that I used the Versa 1 or 2. I've gone through a number of different ones. Basically every year or two they released a fitness wearable that was more like a smartwatch, and every year I'd buy that one. So we're now in 2022 and they've released the Fitbit Sense 2, which is supposed to be their highest end, their most smartwatch like fitness tracker. But this is a downgrade to the Sense 1 in a number of ways. Not in sensors, it certainly has more sensors, and as a health tracker, it's probably much better than the first. But from a smartwatch perspective, which is how they still advertise this, they advertise it as a health plus fitness smartwatch. It has removed Wi-Fi connectivity, third-party app support, and the software on it is just ridiculously laggy. I posted a video on your Twitter earlier, just sort of swiping through the menus. It's like running at 20 frames per second a lot of the time. It's dropping frames left, right, and center. I don't know what they've done or why they've made these decisions, but it's not good. It's really slow. It's really laggy. There's no third-party app support, so you can't load music onto it anymore. You can't control... Well, I think you can control music via Bluetooth, but there's no Deezer. There's no... Spotify apps on it anymore. And they also said things like, Google Pay is coming, which is actually really nice. One of the reasons I did buy this because it will support Google Pay at some point. It's not there today, and who knows when that will come. They didn't give no ETA. Weirdly, it removes Google Assistant support. The Sense 1 had Google Assistant, Sense 2 doesn't, and there are no plans to bring it to the Sense 2. So a lot of weird decisions with this watch. I have a feeling a lot of them are to drive sales to the upcoming Pixel watch, which is supposed to have deep Fitbit integration. And also I believe Fitbit is working on an Android wearable, which will, I assume, run very similar software to the Pixel, but be a Fitbit branded device. So this thing is weird. Don't buy it.
Everything Google touches dies.
Yeah, it's it's a real shame to see Fitbit fall from grace. At one point, Fitbit was the wearable that the fitness wearable to buy.
I had every Fitbit. I
Yeah,
bought
so did
every
I.
one. Even I would buy though. I'd buy like just the bracelet ones, just the
Really?
trackers and stuff like that. 'Cause those were so cool. Because then for a while I was like, well, I'll wear like a regular watch on my left side, and then I'll just have the Fitbit on the right, and I'll kind of get best of both worlds. But yeah, even but then Aura Ring came out, and now Aura Ring for me is even better, right?
Yeah.
So although my Aura Ring is they've been going through some issues too. They're having issues with battery life now. What used to be get 5 days, they introduced a new sensor. They turned on a new sensor for SpO2, and it seems to be draining the battery pretty quickly. So now sometimes I only get like two days out of it.
That same problem with the Fit. Was it the Sense one? One of the Fitbits had SpO2, or maybe it was the Withings watch I wore briefly. One of the watches had that feature, which if you turned it on, it would like basically half the battery life, which I don't think is worth it. So I turned that back off.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can turn the SpO2 sensor off. I got to look into that because I don't. I've been getting 98%, and it's just like, you breathe fine. So it's good enough for me. Yeah, I don't know if I have a thing of the week. Oh, I guess, two things. I'll just quickly mention Andor for Star Wars on Disney Plus is amazing. I've only watched the first 3 episodes. I haven't watched the 4th yet, but we powered through it last Friday and watched all 3. And just the pacing is great. The story is awesome. The characters are cool. The scenery is good.
It's shot very well. It looks. It's a great show to look at.
Yeah, the cinematography is definitely top notch on it, and it's just like a cool espionage, political thriller Star Wars story.
I'll say it's a lot more political. There's a lot more talking in this Star Wars show compared to previous ones, which are sort of focused mostly on the action. Yeah,
I mean, everybody loves the Jedi stuff and lightsabers and all, but like this is just kind of cool because it's on the outer side. But yeah, for those who don't know, this is about Cassian Andor. And it's a prequel to Rogue One, which is arguably one of the best Star Wars movies ever made.
Yeah, true. Have you noticed that a lot of the actors in this are British? Like a lot of them. They've all got British accents.
Yeah. Well, the British accent thing it has to do with the Outer Rim and stuff like that, Inner Rim, I guess, of the galactic.
It was shot here in the UK, and the reason I point it out is because a lot of the actors in the show I recognise from just English TV, like English soaps and stuff. And he was in a show I used to watch when I was younger and stuff.
Yeah, they did a good job with the casting. But yeah, this is Tony Gilroy, who also did the Bourne series, The Ultimatum, and Supremacy. Yeah, so he's got a knack for fast-paced dialogue that's complicated. Like you kind of got to really pay attention to it. Like this isn't like a dumb show. But yeah, Andor is. And I think it's 12 episodes, so it should be a really good series.
Yeah, the
Very
fourth
excited
one was
about
out
it.
this week, which was also pretty good.
Yep. And then that I did upgrade my iPhone. That's right. Everybody's got the new i14 Pro and i14 and all that. iPhone 14. Like I got the iPhone 13 Mini. I went from the 12 Mini to the 13 Mini.
What color did you get?
I got the white one.
You didn't get red. Red's the best color. Come on.
The AIDS phone.
Yes, the phone that supports AIDS. Although I think when I bought mine, it was supporting COVID relief. But normally, yes, it is the AIDS phone.
I did have one of the red ones, and it was pretty awesome. And I did think about getting that. But 2 things. One, I put a case on it, so in the end, it technically doesn't matter. And the red is a cool color. Like I like it. But then I sometimes get like emotionally, it evokes anger. Like they know this.
You look at your phone, I hate this.
Yeah, like it's a reason why people don't paint their rooms red.
Well, Jez does. You see, doesn't Jez have a red room?
Oh yeah. Well, that's why he's always so like depressed and like cynical on stuff. But like a lot of people like will do blue or a light gray blue or something like that, and it's supposed to be a lot more uplifting, So that's one reason. But I kind of like the Stardust is what they call this one. It's almost like a white gold kind. But I ended up putting the Nomad case on it, the Horween leather $80 case. But the reason is because an i14 Pro would have been cool, but they didn't have them in stock. So I was telling my best friend this. I was like, that fails for old Danny boy here. Like if there's a point of purchase, like I could just buy it today. Like
And I'm
you
the
got
same.
me. Like maybe,
I'm the
yeah,
same.
I'm gonna give it some like I'll be like, yeah, maybe I'll just try it. Just throw out any financial considerations, but they're not in stock, and I'm like October 25th. Screw that. Like, and the other thing is, but this is a secondary phone for me. I use it at the gym and on hikes and bike rides and just to test iPhone stuff, right? And the whole point I go with the mini is because it's a mini. So having a big 14 Pro that's heavy kind of defeats the purpose of then carrying kind of two phones around. And since this is the last mini, I wanted to get to the 13 because they did improve. The cameras are better.
Right.
It has a bigger battery. And there's some, the notch is smaller. So there's like a lot of kind of like small changes. That's actually kind of nice. And so I put a nice case on it because yeah, there's no more minis. So I got to keep this one for at least the next couple of years, I guess, until eventually I'll have to get like a bigger iPhone, I guess.
Until small phones come around again and Apple does another mini. Because it's a fashion thing. Every so often, small phones are just in. And right now isn't it.
I do like the mini with iOS 16 is actually pretty awesome.
It is cool,
I really like it a lot.
It is nice.
So they did a nice job with it. But yeah, I guess those are the things of the week. I probably have something else I'll think of next time. But yeah, so there we go. All right, let's wrap up the podcast. So I can go walk my doggy. And as always, we'll do a quick Q&A with the audience here. So if you're listening to this live, you can start asking questions. If you're listening to this recorded, you don't. But you can go watch us on our YouTube channel at Windows Central and watch previous episodes there. You can follow me at Twitter, Daniel_Rubino. And follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN and ask us questions there as well. As always, we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Nice. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them now, and we will do our best to answer them.
Oh, yeah. Also, someone mentioned Deadpool. You see that Wolverine is coming back?
I did see that, yeah. That was a good way to announce that.
It was pretty funny, yeah. I mean, they've been teasing that for years, so...
Yeah. What was holding Microsoft back from enabling even basic iOS support with Phone Link? Even notification relay over Bluetooth would have been a great feature that makes sure I don't leave Windows if I don't need to. It is weird that they didn't concede to Apple, because I guess what they wanted to do is have sort of a deeper integration at the iOS level, and I believe we interviewed the Phone Link team at the time years back, and we asked them, and they were like, yeah, we did ask Apple, and they said no. Which makes sense. Of course they got to say no. Like, what were they expecting?
Right.
But I guess they decided that, if Apple isn't going to throw us a bone, then we're not throwing them a bone, and so they just decided not to build anything into the iPhone. Or at least
it's also tougher. It's a tougher thing to explain. Why wait, how come Android people get all these features and I only get this? Although they kind of do that with Samsung, so I guess
Yeah, that's because Samsung.
What was the only thing you can do with iPhone?
I think it was photos.
Photos?
Yeah, I think it was just photos.
Yeah.
And I think they took that away. Even I don't think that's even a thing anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know. They certainly could have worked around it and done it their own way. I just don't think they thought Apple deserved it, so they didn't.
Is the ARM Surface 9 going to be much cheaper than the other variants? So
no. It will not be.
The question is like weird too, because the other variants, like, oh, you mean is it going to be cheaper than the Core i7 32GB 1TB model? Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Is it going to be cheaper than the Core i5 8GB 256GB version? No, it won't be. 5G is going to be an extra amount, and ARM, the premium ARM processors aren't necessarily much cheaper than Intel. They're going to price it right in the middle, depending on the configuration you get. So no, there's not going to be that difference.
Do you think after the Pro merges with the X, next year we can finally see an 11-inch version of the Pro and probably keep the Go 4 as a cheaper option? I do think it's possible, yes. I may have more to share on that in the next few months, but yeah, I think multiple sizes of the Surface Pro is something that the Surface team have thought about and may consider for a future version of the Surface Pro.
Hey, we get this question all the time. Do you think Chris Capicella should go? Microsoft is terrible at marketing. This guy has been CMO for the 31 years. I don't know.
I I don't think he is the one that decides how Microsoft markets things. I think he is, obviously he's the leader of that org, but there are people underneath that, and also he has his org is budgeted for a certain amount, and I'm pretty sure, I assume he's budgeting or spreading that budget as best he can, and he's probably putting that budget towards the enterprise stuff because that's where Microsoft makes most of its money. If he decided to go, you know what, this year all of the marketing goes on Surface, and that doesn't actually improve things for Surface, then that's going to look bad on him. So there's more to it than just him, doing a poor job at advertising Surface. I think he's just doing the best he can with the budget he has. If he had a bigger budget, then I'm sure he'd be able to advertise consumer products more so. Will the pen shipping with the Surface Studio 3 provide haptic feedback? I don't know the specifics around the accessories, and I don't even know if the pen will be shipped in the box, so we have to wait and see about that. But my assumption is no, it won't. What are the chances for an ARM Surface in a bigger form factor where the CPU can operate on a much higher frequency? Well, that's Project Volterra. Volterra is the Windows and ARM dev kit box, which has a Snapdragon 8CX in it, has a fan in it, and it's, has all the room it needs to breathe. I assume you're referring to, say, something like a laptop. I think at some point in the future we will see a Surface laptop with an ARM chip. I don't think it will be next year, but it will be in the future for sure.
So no Surface Pro 9 Intel 12th Gen with LTE 5G this year. Probably not. We can't absolutely confirm. Maybe for the enterprise version, but I don't see why. I don't see why that would be the case.
Pro 9 with Alcantara, and if so, new colors for the Alcantara. Well, the type covers will be Alcantara. There won't be any Alcantara on the tablet itself. That will be aluminum. So yeah, there'll be type covers with Alcantara, and I don't know if there'll be new colors. I did hear that there may be patterns, like patterns on the type cover, in addition to just plain colors. But we'll have to wait and see if that actually ends up shipping. Do you think Microsoft pushing back the Surface earbuds unveiling is due to the new features and good reviews of the AirPods Pro 2? We talked about that on the podcast. The TLDR of that was possibly it's a combination of multiple things, but I think the primary one is that since the Duo Go, or the cheap Duo, isn't coming this fall, I don't think it makes sense for them to launch phone accessories, which they're not specifically for phones, but they go hand in hand. It doesn't make sense to launch them without the phone, so I think they're just going to hold on to them, or at the very least redesign them for the Duo 3 next year.
Also, these both headphones are better than an AirPods 2. AirPods Pro 2. Dan, getting the new Oura Ring 3. It's round. Oh. No. I have the Oura Ring 3, but I have the stealth version. I don't need a round version. I don't care. I like having the little flat top. It tells me where the sensors are, but don't they have I thought they announced a new gold version or something like that.
When will we have a CPU from Intel or ARM that will crush Apple's offering performance/power? Finally, is this ever going to happen? Qualcomm is expected to have something that rivals the M3 or the M4 in 2024. That is the current expected date for a chip from Qualcomm that will be able to rival the M3 or M4 from Apple. Keep in mind, the M3/M4 isn't even out yet. So 2024, look to that date for when that will happen in the PC space. Do you think we'll see a Surface wearable like the Microsoft Band? I say no. This is one of those markets, just like earbuds, where it's super competitive and it's all about ecosystem lock-in for a lot of people, and I just don't think it makes sense for Surface, unfortunately. Microsoft marketing is really bad. No normal person I know knows about the Duo, HoloLens, and other cool stuff that Microsoft does. I am sure when Apple brings this kind of stuff, they would know about it. Yeah,
Why would,
I will say
but
that.
why would they advertise HoloLens?
I know, yeah, HoloLens is certainly not one. But Duo, I think they could advertise, and they don't. You know, like so both Apple and Samsung pour literal billions into marketing, and they do marketing everywhere. It's not just they do TV ads, they do internet ads, they do YouTube ads, they do newspaper ads. Anywhere that you can throw an ad, you will see an ad from the iPhone and from Samsung. Microsoft doesn't do that. You might see Surface ads on TV in the States. You do not see them here in the UK. And that's one of Microsoft's weaknesses, is where Microsoft is still one of the few tech companies left that are very US centric. Apple, Google, Samsung, none of them are as US centric as Microsoft is. Microsoft treats the United States market as number one, and then everything else is an afterthought. Whereas Apple and Google, well, Google less so, but maybe less so in hardware, but certainly more so in services. Samsung are all much more fair in regards to how they prioritize markets. It's not just the States a lot of the time. So that's probably why a lot of people are saying Microsoft markets things poorly, is because they're not seeing any Microsoft ads because they're not in the States. I don't see any ads for Microsoft stuff because I'm not in the States. I'm sure you see them more in the States. What do you guys think about Amazon's new Kindle Scribe being able to let you ink onto Microsoft Word? It's an interesting idea. The e-ink journaling market has been up and coming for a long time now. You know, the rewritable, whatever it was sort of the king in that market, and I assume they're about to be dethroned by Amazon. It's not for me personally, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are very happy with the Amazon one. Did you guys talk about the possible release date for 12L for Duo? No more updates than what we've said before. Possibly October, possibly November. That's the sort of time period we're expecting. I don't think it will be in the first half of October, because they would need to have a final build by now, and as far as I'm aware, they don't have one yet. So do you guys think there'll be camera improvements in the 12L update for the Duos? Because Panos posted a picture a few days ago, and I don't know what to think about it. I'm sure there will be algorithm updates and improvements. To what extent, I don't know. I'm not expecting any new camera sort of features, but the behind-the-scenes, processing of photos may certainly be updated for sure. Yes. Even if Apple doesn't do marketing, people would still buy it like hotcakes because their products are so good. Well, that's the benefit of ecosystem lock-in. A lot of Apple's customers are buying more Apple stuff because they already have an Apple thing, and all of their purchases and photos and music and whatever else is tied to that Apple ecosystem. So it just makes sense for them to buy the next Apple thing. You don't get that with Surface. You don't get that with Windows. Not really. You can do it a little bit if you force yourself, but it's quite easy to switch from the Microsoft ecosystem to the Apple one, and it's a lot harder to switch out of the Apple one. So right, last questions, and then it's time to head off. When will the Surface Pro 8 get its promised dynamic refresh rate? This is actually something me and Dan were talking about the other day. We don't know. The driver for it, the Intel driver, is out there, and you can install it, and it will enable dynamic refresh on the Surface Pro 8. I guess that it's not officially there because Microsoft doesn't think the driver is good enough. It's there on the Laptop Studio, but the Pro 8 has not gotten that update yet. So if you want it, you can technically go and get it yourself, but Microsoft has not enabled it. This is a good one to end on. Has the excitement for this product launch for Microsoft cooled? The media does not seem excited. Do you guys still get excited covering Microsoft since you know things in advance and are not surprised? I'm personally quite obviously still excited about Surface stuff every year. Even though these upcoming products are basically from a visual perspective the same, it's still interesting to see them, and I'm glad they are still being made. Yeah, the rest of the industry, I guess, is probably a little bit bored of the same old stuff. But Apple does it quite often, and it doesn't seem to affect them. So I think it's okay for Surface to have a quiet year every so often. And this is just one of those years. Every year can't be a blockbuster year where they've got a new form factor and a brand new design. It wouldn't make sense from a business perspective or from a user perspective. So yeah, I'm not too bothered about this year being a quiet year for Surface.
Yeah, it's a little weird as the 10th anniversary. Figure, like I said, I hope they do something special for Surface Pro by having a Surface Pro 10th anniversary edition. I'm like Xbox kind of does this up. That would be cool. But yeah, I mean, the media gets excited when there's a new form factor announced, and it's a surprise, right? But refreshes to current devices, yeah, not nearly as exciting. It's just like the iPhone gets a lot of attention because everybody has an iPhone, especially in the United States. It's like over 50% of users have an iPhone. So it's just people feel more passionate about it versus laptops. Even the new MacBooks, yeah, they get announced, and yeah, when it gets a new design every 5 years, it's like a big deal, and it's makes attention. When they just upgrade and put an M2 processor in it, yeah, it's that big of a deal, so it's kind of the same thing there.
It's true. Like phones just on their own just generate more hype and more discussion, and more people are just automatically interested. If the Duo 3 was coming this fall, a lot more people would be interested in this event. Even if the rest of the lineup was identical to what we know now and the Duo 3 was the only edition, this event would be a much bigger deal because it's a phone, and that's just the way it is. But without the phone, it's a little bit more low-key, and that's fine. It's expected. Anyway, with that, we are going to head off. So thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye.